Gidel anticipates a little bit of the USDA report, and in Argentinian crop harvest under threat because of lack of diesel. We are going to comment that on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So Jerry, how are you today? We had again a choppy week with all the major commodities going down this Friday.
Yeah, the weekend was a little bit choppy, but we started out the week in a real defensive tone here with the weather forecast for much of the central U.S. to basically be limited rains. And, our weekly progress numbers here that were issued on Monday night, uh, definitely saw the corn kind of get back up to near normal. That's not surprising considering that we were, towards the end of the year, everything seems to get back towards the averages. But the soybean scenario still, uh, with some of the negative progress numbers we've had in the last few years here, still only 66%. That's still not all that impressive, to say the least. From there, we normally even sometimes we get starting to get some wheat harvest numbers being reported. It wasn't done this last week again on that one. From there, that's probably going to get some number out next week, and the overall number is going to be somewhere below 5% when it does get issued. But right now, there's been this rains moving through central and eastern parts of the Great Plains, and that through Kansas and Oklahoma. There was a few showers out in the far western areas of the Texas Panhandle. From there, it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of USDA report we get on wheat there on the crop number. But there's so many other things going on right now, and not enough people even focused on U.S. wheat winter wheat production numbers right now.
Yes, before we jump into the Argentinian issue, let's go right away to the USDA report. So you are anticipating that the ending stocks will drop for both soybeans and wheat, not corn.
Yeah, well, the interesting twist on this thing as we're sitting here is the fact that uh, on the corn data that's up to this date, we've had uh, on the domestic side of the thing here for corn, the ethanol demand, it's been solid, and we did end up getting an update for April, and that was a month when we traditionally have the big ethanol firms taking some downtime to get kind of wound up for summer and on into early fall, and that's so the number we got of a 414 million gallons or excuse me, yeah, 414 million gallons of use on target. And I think the interesting thing is if you look at where we're going to go for the rest of the summer, May through September, or through August, I should say, that number needs to be 455 million. It's a bounce back from our this month's number, but I think it's a doable number. But I don't also think the USDA is going to make any adjustments in corn demand on that one. On the export side, the number here, we've got about 175 million more that we need to get sold to meet the USDA. So I keep being quite surprised about the export demand from overseas, and that considering the fact we've had a pretty significant amount of corn that got trapped in Ukraine. They're still trying to make various ideas here from our people. Now they added to some of the weakness this week, by the way, where first the UN was going to be involved, and We had some other people, and we encouraged that maybe the Russians would open up a food corridor from Odessa to get exports out, because at this point the Ukrainians are going to have a heck of a time trying to get a lot of stuff exported out of there by rail or get it across the borders and that to the west. Even Belarus made a comment today that they were willing to let stuff being moved out through across their particular borders to the Baltic Sea and that, but they also wanted to make sure they could get their exports of fertilizer and other things out too. So I doubt that's going to be a non-starter, like most of these proposals coming from Moscow and now Belarus, that they're not going to have a lot of luck on that. But in reality of it is that that's what I expect the corn number this for June here on the U.S. ending stocks to be relatively unchanged at this point. But as you mentioned, the soybeans and wheat, we could have some downward adjustments in the 2022, 21, and 22 crops here because of what's happened so far.
Yes, so let's jump right into the Argentinian issue that has so many ingredients for this shortage of diesel there. At least 8 provinces reporting lack of diesel. So, and at a time that the Argentinians are mostly harvesting corn, and how do you think that is going to affect FOB prices in the Gulf of Mexico?
Well, I think that's just another one of these features that have hit this markets in that on the corn side, you know, we're also going to get some updates from USDA on both the corn and soybeans from both Brazil and Argentina. Not anticipating a lot of changes from Brazil on definitely on the bean side. Maybe they'll slide a couple, 1 or 2 million out of their new crop. I really feel like that the dryness down there is going to have an impact, but nobody else is jumping on that idea. Switching over to what you just mentioned, though, highly, highly important here for the Argentinian crop. From that standpoint, I've actually anticipated that we might see as much as 1 or 2 million taken out of that number here, primarily because of weather. Now this particular news here about their harvest situation, it's not so much the reality of what we're going to deal with here on actually getting the harvest out with diesel fuel, but also that those kinds of things are important on the drying of things and getting this stuff out of the combination of things. And so it's another, like you say, supply side issues here with things being stuck and that not being able to have the ingredients you have to make a good harvest out of things. And that, on looking at the wheat side of things here, that also could even have an impact on getting some seeding going on for that next crops situation there in Argentina. So, because they do plant a lot of winter wheat down there in Buenos Aires. So that's another thing in the background that sometimes people kind of get lost.
And any comments on the Brazilian safrinha?
Well, that's the thing. We had a lot of commentary up on that until probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and you just feel like the trend on dryness and things like that suggested that we have a further potential for some adjustments there. But it's really kind of got lost here on news with everything concentrating on Ukraine and what's going on with this potential movement of some of their exports and things like that. From there, the interesting thing is that this popped up in an update today from one of the private consultants down there, that some of the second crop corn in Paraná, which we definitely had a lot of problems with that first crop corn and beans down in that area, along with Mato Grosso do Sul and Paraguay and things like that. And it was a tough go. and the ideas on things were that the second crop we had some more moisture around, but some of the early yields are not doing so well on that corn in that area. So, but at this point, the big harvest is still Mato Grosso up there, and there's definitely lots. We planted more acres or slash hectares in Mato Grosso this year. So that's important. That's going to be a big factor, even if we lose a little bit on yields on things as we go through here from that standpoint. But I think the interesting thing is the soybeans next week. We could have some interesting situations develop there from the standpoint that right now, we mentioned it last month that we were kind of ahead of the trend here on sales. And at that point, they increased the exports about, I think it was 35 million or so in that. And it seemed a little bit short, not very, for so many weeks out in front of us, I thought it would be higher. Well, what happens within a week or so, we were past it. Then we had a very good jump in exports here earlier this month, or I should say back in mid-May. And now all of a sudden we're at 47, 48, 49 million above the USDA's projection again. So the prospects of them having to increase that up, we were at 235 million last month on a carryover stock. So I'm kind of anticipating a number around 175, 180 from there. No, it's not 100. It's not way down there, but definitely just another chink in the armor here on how many bushels of beans the U.S. has in its stores. And the interesting twist is that if we have some issues up there in the northern plains on getting the balance of these crops in up there. Now we've got an opening this week but the problem was that they had a big rain there on Sunday into Monday before this week kind of got going. So they're just getting back in the fields up there. Hopefully they're going to get a chance to get things going. But right now we only had about 11 million out of their 20 million that's been planted, or is yet to be planted, I should say, excuse me. We're not 50% done on all of the crops they have up there. And so, the interesting twist in this thing is that the land that maybe might not get planted might be the beans, because if the corn was their dates coming up now, and they'll probably try to get a few more acres in. Wheat's going to be another one that they can get harvested in September, but the soybeans could be the short change one. And so everything's going to start building towards the end of June here when we get our USDA planning prospects. But that's not in the bullseye right now. We're looking at next week's June updates, and many times the June USDA reports are somewhat hum, and I kind of feel like that we're not anticipating any changes really in the corn numbers. The beans are important. I think, surprisingly, I think that's part of the reason beans have kind of hung in here in comparison to wheat and corn. Both of those have been a little more weak, have been on the defensive here, primarily because the weather's been open, but at the same time, harvest on wheat's right around on the corner. As we mentioned, we'll probably finally get our first USDA number on that this coming week. So, we're quite a few balls in the air right now, but I wonder if this market might have, everybody was getting out because the skies were sunny and we're going to get a lot of stuff planted. But at the same time, I wonder if some of the plantings might not get done just because it's got so late, and the threat of frost and other issues in the fall are going to make people a little bit gun shy about putting things crops in the ground that's going to potentially get damaged at the end of the year, and insurance coverage is going to be reduced.
Yes, we are likely to have more people watching because of your estimates here. I would like you to give us a little bit of marketing advice to the farmer
Well,
standpoint.
overall, we were coming into this end of May. We were really looking at moving most of our crop out there and only having 10% or less on gambling stocks and old crop. Kind of feel like you really have to stay with that situation going forward. We were running 25, maybe 30% of your got some brains in the right places this spring on the corn and soybean situation. I kind of feel like that the interesting twist here is that on the if we did get a little strength through the crop report or even right after it here on soybeans, I'd probably want to move that soybean number up closer to 30 to 35%. Corn's going to be really interesting with this reduced plantings this year and also the the weather that we've had so far and the prospects of potentially the 89.5 million acres possibly being slipped. I think there's been some places that it has went up and that because of the prices we've had, but I also think that we could end up having a million less acres in North Dakota, Minnesota, and northern parts of South Dakota. So all of a sudden we could still be slightly lower at the end of the month. So I kind of guess I'd hold my gun on corn here a little bit, but particularly the latest weather situation kind of added to this weakness when all of a sudden the National Weather Service, which is expected a kind of above normal temperatures for the whole central U.S. for June, July, and August, and then limited rains from central Iowa back towards the Rockies, and that all of a sudden kind of backed out of that for the month of June. And so, that does project a little better prospects, but the biggest thing right now is July and August weather in the central U.S. is still, if it comes back with a vengeance here with heat and dryness, that would not be good for U.S. yields.
All right, sir. We wrapped everything. Thank you very much.
You bet. It's always good to talk, Luis. And it'll next week we got the USDA report on Friday. We'll try to get together over the weekend.